Welcome back to Deb's True Crime Notebook, where we read the documents for you so you don't have to. We have a bunch of documents coming, as I understand it. I believe they are orders of the court, so she may be responding to a lot of the motions that were put in earlier. We'll see what that brings when we get a hold of those. So we have the testimonies of Kathy Shank, who was the former DCS worker who volunteered to help in the office, filing papers and organizing things. We have her testimony, which is very interesting, and one that I think we've all been curious about, the testimony of Dan Doulin. He was the conservation officer that took the information from Richard Allen, and we're going to get into that right now. The court reconvened today with the jury arriving in the courtroom. The judge informed everyone that the jury members were permitted to use their phones, contact their families, and to check work emails. They've not been exposed to any media coverage. Then the state called Kathy Shank to the stand. Shank served as a secretary for the investigation, collecting names and information from tipsters. She noted that she collaborated with over 50 law enforcement officers during the course of the investigation. Shank informed the jury that she received banker's boxes filled with reports pertaining to the investigation and was tasked with organizing them. Ultimately, the reports occupied 5 filing cabinets. She explained that she established a filing system categorized by names of individuals of interest, tipsters, and more. In 2020, Shank was instructed to digitize every file from the filing cabinets into an electronic database. She mentioned that this process took her years to complete. Shank noted that while she entered over 14,000 files, she did not read the full context of each one. She told the jury that at some point she came across some handwritten tips, and one of them said, a Richard Allen Whiteman had self-reported being on the trails, and girls had seen him at the same time. That tip was dated February 16, 2017. Shank said she pulled the written tip about Allen being interviewed in 2017 and changed the file name to Richard Allen. She told the jury she made this discovery on September 21, 2022. Shank told the jury that her job was not to decide if a tip should be followed up on, that she simply was tasked with organizing. During cross-examination by the defense, Shank stated that the error occurred prior to her involvement in the investigation. Defense attorney Andrew Baldwin inquired, to your knowledge, was there any other tip related to Richard Allen? Shank responded, to my knowledge, no. She explained to the jury that there were so many tips that she couldn't recall specific individuals. Baldwin further questioned, would you remember if there was a tip about a man covered in mud and blood walking on 300 North? Shank admitted she would not recall the details. The jury then asked Shank, how did you identify that the name on the file was incorrect? She explained that, being familiar with the area, she recognized the existence of Whiteman Drive. The state then called Captain Dan Doulin to the stand. Doulin, who has served as a conservation officer for 26 years with the Department of Natural Resources, has worked throughout Indiana but has spent the last 10 years in Carroll County area. He informed the jury that he became involved in the investigation on February 16, 2017. Doulin explained that his role was to assist with and follow up on leads. He mentioned that he received a lead concerning Richard Allen and subsequently contacted him by phone. Doulin shared with the jury that he requested a meeting with Allen at his home or at a police headquarters. However, Allen declined and preferred to meet in a grocery store parking lot instead. Doulin recounted meeting Allen in a grocery store parking lot on February 18, 2017. He informed the jury that during their conversation, Allen mentioned he had been on the trails on February 13th between 1:30 and 3:30 p.m. Let me restate that, 1:30 and 3:30 p.m. Allen stated that he saw 3 girls at the Freedom Bridge. Doulin added that Allen clarified he parked at the old CPS building before walking to the Freedom Bridge and then to the High Bridge. Doulin also noted that Allen said he was observing a stock ticker while walking. So let's look at a recap of Kathy Shank's testimony. Now, Kathy Shank is a former DCS worker who volunteered for this position. And she informed us that she came across Richard Allen's name and his information from Dan Doulin while she was entering that information and 14,000 other documents into a new digital system. And when she saw the name Richard Allen Whiteman, she recognized that Whiteman is actually the name of a drive there in Delphi, Whiteman Drive, and that happens to be where Richard Allen lives. So she was able to look at that address, look at his name, and figure out that someone had made a mistake, and she fixed it and entered it into the system. In recapping Dan Doulin's testimony, a lot of people have wondered why Dan Doulin, a conservation officer, was involved. He was asked to help because there were so many tips and so much information coming in, and he is officially, like law enforcement. They have all the same abilities as a police officer, as I understand it. So he received a tip, and I believe it was a admitted tip. Alan called in, and he tried to make arrangements to meet Alan at his home to take more information. Alan did not want to meet at home. Then Doulin said he could meet at the police station. Alan did not want to meet at the police station. Now, you can look at that in any way you want. I'm looking at it logically, and I'm thinking with all the people who are being looked at and blamed, I might not want to meet at the police station, have someone see me going in there, or have someone in a police car or an official car coming to my house either. However, it was very early on in the investigation, and so I don't think much finger pointing was going on back then. So you have to look at that and kind of say, So he did do that. He ended up agreeing to meet him in a grocery store parking lot. And he said that he was there, that he wasn't paying attention to what he was looking at. He was looking at a stock ticker as he walked along, but he did admit passing those 3 girls, and those girls have admitted seeing him, and that places him on the bridge. He said in this testimony, according to Dan Doulin, that he was there between 1:30 and 3:30, which would put him there at the time of the abduction and the girls' unalivings. That concludes the testimony from this morning's session, day 6 of the Richard Allen trial. We're going to be back multiple times today, I'm afraid, because, as I said earlier, we've got a ton of documents that are waiting to be downloaded. And as soon as we find out what those are, I believe they are orders from the court. As soon as we find out what they are specifically, I'll get back with you. Thanks for watching and listening. Thanks for all of your support. I appreciate you guys more than you can know. And I hope that this helps you to be able to keep up to date with what's going on in this trial. It's very time-consuming and very mind-boggling at this point. We're hearing the prosecution side. When they're finished, we're going to hear the defense side. And I think the comments from you guys will be very interesting when we've heard all of the information in this case. We'll see you next time on Deb's True Crime Notebook. Don't forget to do all the things and leave us a comment.